Welcome back to Beyond HR, the show where we explore how AI is fundamentally changing the way we work. I am Jeff Wellstead.
And I am Shveta Malhan. Jeff, we've all seen it, the star performer who's fantastic in the eyes of their manager, but whose team tells a very different story. It's a classic leadership blind spot, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And that's the fundamental flaw in the sort of traditional top-down performance reviews. It only ever gives you like a slice of the pie and not the full picture. So today we're going to show how AI can help synthesize complex 360-degree feedback from managers, peers, direct reports to create a truly holistic and personalized development plan.
Yeah, and this is a game changer for all HR and L&D professionals because we are moving beyond just one size fits all training to create a truly personalized leadership journey. And we are going to demo it live. We'll start at a 30,000 foot view, look at the entire manager's team to uncover team wide patterns. Then we'll zoom into a 10,000 foot view to explore the single high potential employee in a team and the perception gaps in their 360 feedback. And finally, we'll get on the ground and build a personalized 30, 60, 90-day plan for that one specific individual. And let's see how AI helps us turn those data points into insights and helps us come up with an action plan.
Yeah, it's going to be cool. So this is because I don't know how you feel about it, but I'm sure you probably feel the same. But this is, I think, where AI goes from simply being a productivity tool to really kind of being almost a strategic partner in talent development. If you know what I mean? Yeah.
Let's start with Alex, a manager with several direct reports. We've uploaded Alex's team's 360 feedback into the GPT. And now we are going to ask a very simple question. And think of this question as a curiosity question that an HR leader who's running 360 for this particular team is curious about. So I'm going to upload a fictitious data set that we created here from my drive.
And are you
And again,
showing your screen, Shveta, or is this?
oh, that's true. I forgot to do share screen. Thank you for
That's
keeping
okay.
me honest here.
No worries. I just wondered because I kept flipping back and forth. So okay, cool.
Yeah, I'm going to share my screen. Give me a second. Okay, great. So we can upload any, like we can pull the SurveyMonkey 360 or whatever tool we use to run the 360. We can just do an export and create a data set. It could be in CSV file, it could be Excel, or even a Word document. It really doesn't matter as long as we give the generative AI model that we're using, whether it's ChatGPT, Gemini, or whatever the company has approved. We just need to upload that data set into that model. So here I uploaded a synthetic data set that Jeff and I created for this demo today. We are starting with a 30,000 feet view of the situation. So as an HR person who's run this 360, we'd naturally be curious to start with understanding the big picture for Alex, who is running the entire group. So my first question that we are going to test out here is, what are the biggest strengths and gaps the team sees in Alex's leadership? Let's see what comes out as results. So you see, I'm using the standard 4O model. I'm not even using a reasoning model here, but it's going through its own thinking process.
All right. Okay. Here we go.
All right. So it thought for 9 seconds. So it's showing us preview of data.
Is this what they call chain of thought in terms of like breaking down how it kind of was reasoning through the material?
I guess so. Yeah. It's showing us its own thinking that it's gone through.
Very interesting.
And it's still thinking.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot to look at there, right? There's all sorts
Yes.
of interesting numeric equations. There's the compare and contrast between the different people. So I can appreciate that it's not sort of an instant one and done thing.
Yep. So there we go. Here are the results.
Cool.
So looks like the biggest strengths are strategic thinking and direction.
Right. Yeah, that's like scoring what, just under a 5. So for
Yeah.
top.
Yeah. And it's giving us the breakup as well. Like Alex scored 4.7 for self versus what the team has rated him.
And you didn't ask GPT to do this.
No, my prompt was very simple and straightforward.
Right.
My prompt, where did my prompt go? Yeah, my
Yeah,
prompt
there you go.
was, what are the biggest strengths and gaps the team sees in Alex's leadership?
I always find this fascinating about these large language models is that they kind of go the extra step and they're like, what else might this person, might want to see? What would be interesting and illuminating in terms of this? And just unprovoked or unsolicited, I should say. It just
That's
pops
right.
up with like, look at it this way, look at it that way. It's really
That's
interesting.
right. That's right. And it's also giving us like this is the team average, and this is what qualitative feedback sample looks like to support that. So, execution, strategic thinking, and execution and follow through are the biggest strengths, and the biggest gaps are communication, clarity, and influence, and people leadership behaviors like coaching and empowerment.
Wow. Okay. So that's some interesting patterns. Can you just scroll up a little bit? I want to take a look at the strengths, yeah, and the biggest gaps as well. So I guess on one hand, you're not sharing screen again. So on one hand, what's interesting about this is that it shows almost on the surface like great. I mean, this is actually a really solid, kind of leadership review, strategic thinking and direction. That's giving direction. That's leadership, right? And then there's execution and follow through. And if you're good at those things, arguably, I mean, what's not to love about your performance? But then this notion of this, communication clarity and influence. I mean, communication has always ever been a bugbear, right? That's always ever popped up as a thing that we don't necessarily horribly do well until we constantly have to like remind ourselves and think to do it. And whatever the case, but that's kind of important. It's great you have good strategic thinking and execution capability, but if we're not talking to each other, right, in a clear and concise way, and we're not then therefore able to influence one another or influence others based on the work that we're trying to do, then it feels like potentially the whole experience is for naught. And then people leadership behaviors, coaching and empowerment. That's interesting. Can we just dive a little bit deeper into that? Can you just tell me what you're
Yeah.
seeing there?
Yep. So it's telling us that, the interesting thing is
Hmm.
that the difference between self understanding and team perception is quite close. There isn't a big variance. So at least it
Okay.
tells us that Alex is self aware of what his development areas look like.
Right. Okay. Very interesting. Very interesting indeed. Okay. So I mean so this is interesting. So that now we're potentially in some new territory. And if I, to be perfectly honest, in my HR days,
Excuse me.
bless you, in my HR days, this is just one individual, right? This is one group that we're looking at. And of course, we always ever had to look at like 72 groups, kind of thing. And to basically learn how to kind of pluck out the nuance in terms of the variability and so forth, and actually start to kind of proactively get ahead of potential problems that were likely to develop and occur over the course of time. Whereby, in this particular case, these people are brilliant at kind of strategic thinking, not so good with the communication, not so good with coaching and empowerment.
Yeah.
That basically at some point will boil over. If I was just simply looking at this, I wouldn't have picked that up. That to me feels a bit nuanced. And I'm really glad we did pick it up
Yeah.
because then that will obviously be a cue for us to further prompt, development planning. So this is going to be interesting to see how this rolls out.
Yep, yep. And we can use a variety of prompts as an HR leader who's run this 360 for a director, a VP, or a team leader in an organization, because clearly that leader is not going to see non-anonymized 360 for themselves from their team, right?
Right.
So
Right.
this is where how HR becomes a strategic partner for the business, because now they have access to the data and they can work with the data to unpack all dimensions that they need to give that targeted coaching conversation for that leader. Like, for example, I can put a quick prompt here to say, identify team wide strengths that Alex can use to leverage for future projects. Let's see what AI, the word GPT comes back to us with.
Really thinking.
Yeah. So, like the point that I'm trying to drive here is that we don't have to automate an experience and just delegate everything to AI. We can also use it as our assistant so that we are better equipped to have conversation. Now imagine the time saved for an HR business partner to make sense of the 360. And this is where the beauty of AI augmentation lies. It is augmenting me as an HR business partner and equipping me with the insight that I need to go talk to Alex.
Yeah, and you know what I like about this too, Shweta? When if you want to kind of play a strategic role as an HR person, which is really frankly what they're paying us to do, really is to kind of start to know our players extraordinarily well, almost like chess pieces in a way, and get to know what their behaviors are, get to know what their strengths are, get to know where their areas of development are. And importantly, kind of like offer up, some coaching, obviously, if that's something that both of you feel comfortable with. But to basically start to kind of like share trends and patterns and things of that nature to say, hey, this is some of the stuff I see coming through. Does this, kind of register with you? Do you feel like this is possibly a true thing, or how are you kind of reading this? And to get into that level of a conversation is infinitely more powerful and more useful in terms of HR's role versus just kicking out a bunch of paper and flipping it back to people and then letting them forget it and they kind of move on to the next fire. So I think this is what this process is, and it's always ever been the case with my working with ChatGPT or Claude or Gemini or whatever the case, that you learn as much as you process.
Yeah.
So as you're processing things, you're really getting some powerful insights into, in this particular case, how Alex, thrives. Like, what is he particularly good at? So what is this? Okay, so what is this telling us then? So what should we do with this information?
So here's what it came back with as team-wide strengths based on the 360. So the strengths that Alex can leverage on upcoming projects from his team are strategic framing and prioritization, and consistent execution and delivery discipline, cross-functional collaboration,
Right.
ownership and accountability mindset. So you see, for Alex and for HR business leader coaching Alex, this is super powerful because Alex now knows what are my team strengths that I can work with, depending on what projects Alex is shaping for the team to work on, right? And a follow-up question to this would be, what are the weaknesses that Alex should be mindful of as he, let's say, uh, embarks on AI adoption projects for his team? So you see, we can get as specific as we want.
Contextual. Yeah, right. And the more you are, the more interesting it is. Yeah, that's brilliant. Okay, cool. Let's see what happens here.
Yeah. I mean, look at how AI is thinking. It's saying for AI adoption, we need to focus on risks such as poor communication about the why behind AI projects. So we can see how AI is thinking about this whole question before it gives us the response.
This is interesting. So it's actually, yeah, so it kind of picked up on the nuance that you kind of threw in there because you didn't really ask about that in terms of the strengths, in terms of the context of AI adoption. So it basically said, hey, let me just level set and just kind of make sure you and I are thinking the same thing about AI adoption. And then this way we both understand the context of what I'm about to kick out, which is this.
That's right.
Okay. Okay.
So here it's giving us specific weaknesses or risks that Alex should watch out for when leading AI adoption, linked to signals from 360 and translated into practical mitigations from the
Right.
team's view. Communication is the lowest rated area. Leadership behaviors like delegation, coaching trail other strengths, and a recurring qualitative theme. So it's automatically gone and looked at both quantitative and qualitative data
Right.
to give us the recommendation. So
Brilliant.
the qualitative theme is to be more data driven.
Excellent. Okay.
So
So
it's
now it's
telling
saying,
us,
yeah, sorry, go ahead.
yep. So it's sharing with us communication, the why and the evidence is a weakness. And
This
it's
is
telling us what is shaping the risk signal.
I just love this formatting. I mean, it's like we didn't ask for any of this, but it's actually helping us make sense of it one section at a time. So it's not so overwhelming. And it's parsing everything out to say, look, here's the risk signal. Here's why it matters in AI. and here are what the leading indicators are. And actually, in the mitigations, more importantly, so it's actually given us it's giving us a bit of a formula to follow or consider at least. We don't have to follow it obviously exactly,
Yeah.
but it's got to make sense to us, and it's great because it's getting my wheels going now.
Yeah.
I was sort of sat there going, what am I going to do about this potential communication issue, within Alex's group? And it's already kind of giving us a steer. That's great.
That's right. So here's one. And then again, because there is qualitative input in this 360, we can also ask questions to chat GPT. Let's see, let's take another prompt that I have here. I'm going to copy paste it here to save us time. So the prompt here is, what words or phrases appear most frequently in the development feedback? Show a mini word cloud or top 5 themes. Let's see if it shows us the word cloud.
Yeah. It'd be amazing. All right. A bit more context here. This really is, you're definitely showing chain of thought here. That's what this is. It's kind
That's
of
right.
really, yeah, that's really awesome.
Yep. And I'm not using the reasoning model. I'm just using the standard 4O model.
I think that's changed literally like
Yeah.
today. Or you have a different version of it than I
Yeah.
had, because I've done like 3 major projects in the last 24 hours on it, and it wasn't doing any chain of reasoning stuff. But what's super important about that, and to point out to our HR brothers and sisters, is that we like to see how the logic is flowing. Oh,
Mm.
blimey! See that? So
Oops.
we're not sharing screen again.
Yeah. I'll just share it back.
It's erased us. What is it? Is this literally giving us code?
Yep. So we can see now how it's analyzed the data using the code if we want. It's a Python code. We can copy it and paste it and try it in other places. So
Look. Okay, cool.
that was the code, and looks like, yeah, it's giving us a word cloud. Doesn't look very pretty, but let's see what happens when we expand it. Yeah, it
Yeah,
really
the
doesn't look
ugliness gets
very
bigger.
pretty.
But this is interesting though, because it's also giving us a bit of a key down the right side. It's
Yeah, but all the words, it's giving us the count that it's used, so we can
I
use.
see. Okay. Got it.
Yeah. So see, we can now use ChatGPT or Gemini to make sense of the qualitative feedback as well. And then the last one I want to show is, we can use prompts that generate insights or stories using the data as well. So let's say, for example, we want to we're curious as somebody who's creating this leadership development curated experience for Alex. My question with this data would be, if this pattern continues, what risks does it pose to the team and the business?
Indeed. Yeah, quite.
So let's see what comes back when we ask it that question. Because again, as a coach to a leader, it will be really interesting for me to also understand all the impacts of this 360 for the
Definitely.
leader.
Wow, this is interesting. Okay, can I just say something too? Because I mean, I've been obviously in this business for a very long time, and the sort of bog standard, off the shelf, kind of classic performance review process never ever goes into this level of detail typically. In fact, in order to get this level of detail, in order to get this level of research, in order for it to go and chop and change and slice and dice and go super deep into all these elements, you typically would have to pay a major consultancy, right, to come in. Something like Corn Ferry or
Yeah.
McKinsey or somebody, and they would come in and they have their leadership models and they talk to you about them, and they're 25 pages long, and we go into all sorts of detail, and it's a 360, and it's really just going to be so mind blowing. And oh, by the way, it's going to cost you 75,000, to execute for, I don't know, a team of 25 or something like that. This is you and me literally playing with a reasonably simple synthetic data set. You're just asking it simple one line questions, and it's coming back with data that basically rivals anything I've ever seen in terms of the reporting that would come back from these major consultancies for heavy duty 360 engagement. Literally, an HR person for a company of 500 people could have all of this analysis done in a week, right? And just schedule a bunch of meetings with people and say, "Let me take you through it."
That's
You
right.
know,
That's
and
right.
then it's amazing.
Yep. And now it's not like we are just giving the development plan to Alex saying, do XYZ.
Yeah,
What
right.
we are going with is a compelling narrative and story around why we are recommending what we are recommending. Because we've done our research as the administrator of 360 to be ready for that conversation. It helps me prepare better as a
Indeed.
coach.
Yeah, and it gives you the data to back everything up. And it also, to your point, gives you the implications of the organization if we don't do anything or whatever. Yeah, this is brilliant.
Yep. So this was the 30,000-foot view. Let's try now and zoom in on Alex's team, where we have an employee named Jordan Lee, who's a product manager in his team and is a high potential performer. So let's ask ChatGPT, what's the biggest perception gap between Jordan's self-rating and how others experience Jordan?
Indeed. And this is a big issue. It's a rarity when there's alignment across everybody's point of view and perspective about it, about an individual, especially a leader. And look, I get it. It's a hard job. It's seemingly impossible sometimes. You're given so much to do in such a short space, and you're always ever resource and time constrained. And the question is, how do I bring everybody with me? How do I make this happen in a way that everybody feels involved, included, has impact, and all these other important kind of more soft psychological types of issues. I should say soft. I think those are the hard skills, to be honest. While at the same time, we got to deliver on time, on budget, at speed. You know what I mean? We got to be competitive. So
Yeah.
it's a really difficult job to do. And so oftentimes, what are we seeing here with Jordan?
Yeah. So here it's kind of created a chart for us
Yeah.
around self rating on
Okay.
different dimensions and how the team perceives Jordan. So, based on this chart, it's telling us that the biggest perception gap is strategic. It's an
Interesting.
interactive chart. Oh, they're not supported. Okay, it's not an interactive chart. Anyways, so strategy is the biggest perception gap between team and self.
Okay.
And then it's telling us that others see Jordan as more strategic than Jordan sees himself.
That's interesting.
This is a positive underestimate, an opportunity to lean in and lead more visibly on framing choices, trade offs, and long range direction.
Brilliant. Brilliant. Yeah, that makes
Collaboration.
sense. Yep.
Let
Yep.
me just
Jump
reshare
back in
my
again.
screen again.
So let's go into the secondary gap then.
That's right. So strategic collaboration are skewing right, which means the self perception is lower than what the rest of the team focuses on, and communication and execution are skewing left, which means the team perceives them as gaps versus Jordan as himself.
Got it. Which is always ever interesting, right? I mean, this issue of self awareness is such a powerful thing for leaders. And that's always ever included in any top leadership program, which is, get to know you. Stare at yourself in the mirror. We're going to give you the words. We're going to give you the models, whatever it is. But by the time we're done, you're going to know more about yourself than you probably have learned in the past 20 years by the use of this thing. But here we are. Again, just you and me. We haven't even completed 40 minutes of going through this, and we're already getting to this level of intense detail. And this could be great. Then, when you think about Jordan, so does Jordan report to Alex in the synthetic data?
Yes.
Okay, so this is going
Yes.
to give Alex some powerful kind of insight in terms of how Jordan thinks. He'll probably have a couple of aha moments like, wow, that's interesting. I hadn't put that together. And he'll have probably a couple of, yeah, I kind of knew that about Jordan. He's always ever been a bit like that. But hey, bring it up, is our coaching, to Alex to say, it's important that Jordan understands this is part of his makeup. And importantly, it's how people are perceiving him,
That's right.
so yeah. Okay.
That's right. And because Jordan is identified as a high potential, I'd be curious to know as an HR business partner to see, is Jordan ready for that next move, or are there any hidden signals in the comments, because there's a qualitative data aspect to this as well, that point to readiness or risk for his, let's say, next promotion. So
Yeah.
let's see if we
And
ask.
that's a really big determination, isn't it? I mean, you don't do that stuff lightly. Pay increases and promotions and things of that nature. And if you don't do it without good data, right, potentially you're setting that person up for failure, which is horrific. You know,
Yeah.
so that's something we want to make sure that we're doing. Okay, so you've now kind of then flipped over now to the qualitative stuff.
Yeah.
Let's see
Because
what
I'm
it comes up.
explicitly asking it to look at the comments.
Got it. Got it. Got it. Got it. Interesting. Let's see what it comes up with. It's having a good old noodle today, man. Ooh, wow. Here we go.
Yeah. I love it that it shows us what data pieces is ChatGPT actually evaluating.
Well, it's super important, right? Because if you're sat there with Alex, Jordan's boss,
Yeah.
and Alex says, "Shveta, what are you talking about? Like,
Yeah.
I've never heard that ever," kind of thing. And he's operating off of anecdotal, emotive responses, which is a lot of the conversations I've ever had with leaders, especially in high stress environments. And to be able to kind of say, well, okay, that's cool. Just take it easy. Let me just take you through the data, right? Let me just show
Yeah.
you how this is all kind of playing out so you can kind of see what's going on. And suddenly the objections start to kind of filter away. And then it becomes more of an exploration of that's interesting. The data is saying this. And it's important, right, that we get this right. This creates a sense of credibility and accuracy in the feedback. And if Jordan's going to hear this and hear it right, and then potentially kind of like bring it home in his own mind and start to noodle on it, start to think it through. The only way we're going to be able to kind of do that is by giving him evidence that this stuff is real and we're not making this up. This is not HR's thing. And it puts us in a really interesting position as proper coaches. I mean, I think this is where we want to be. Okay.
That's right. And I love it that we don't have to focus so much on engineering the prompt either. You see, my prompts are very lean. They're
Yeah.
like as if I'm engaging with an intelligence, like a junior analyst of or something like that, somebody who's doing the work, heavy lifting of making sense of the data for me.
Indeed.
So it's we this prompt engineering is becoming such a big thing, but in my use cases, how I'm experimenting with AI, I don't see the need for us to go heavy on prompts every single time. There might be situations where you have to give it the context that, hey, you are an expert IO psychologist or you are a performance coach. Look at the data from that lens, but it's not needed all the time. And if we really want to test out, is there any difference? We've now kind of given lean prompts and seen the output. There's nothing stopping us to say, hey, you are a performance coach. Now evaluate the data and see if there are any differences. I doubt there will be much difference.
Yeah, I think I need to start weaning myself off of and mansplaining my entire thought process to ChatGPT every time I go in. I keep thinking, gosh, if I don't explain every little thing, it's going to get it wrong. And then I have these sessions with you, Shweta, and I don't know, maybe it's your magic combination of words or something. But to your point, I mean, your prompts are like literally a sentence. Mine
Yep.
are like 10, 15 sentences. And I'm like, and I'm sure ChatGPT is like, what's wrong with this guy? Does he
Yeah.
think I'm deaf or an idiot or something? You know what I mean?
And the beauty, Jeff, is that if you don't get the output that you're looking for, there's nothing stopping us from saying, oh, no, this is not what I was expecting. I want you to look at it from that perspective. Because the more we have back and forth with our GPT agent, the more the GPT agent also learns about us. Maybe that's why my prompts are becoming, lean because it understands where I'm coming from and how I like to see the output that
Indeed.
it generates.
And
So
is
I
it,
would
is it,
love for you to test it out on
yeah,
your side and let me know, like, does it generate the same output for you
it'd be
or not?
interesting, right? Because I mean, these large language models do have memory, right? And the
Yeah.
thing is that it does get to know you over time. In fact, I think there's a setting in ChatGPT, if I recall, I just saw it the other day, where it asks me, would you like me to consider all of your prior responses or all of our prior conversations in anything I kind of like, work with you on going forward? And I was like, yeah, definitely. Cause I've only ever used it for pretty heady HR challenges and problems and things. So yes, please, let's build context here. And I have to say, it's it is weird, but it feels like it's reading my mind half the time. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And I'm like, where did it get that from? And it's just me forgetting the fact that I talked about it, 2 weeks ago to ChatGPT, and it's remembered everything, right? So yeah, it's brilliant.
Yeah, that's right. And see, now we just asked a simple question. It's already proactively giving us the promotion readiness recommendation framework.
No way. You didn't ask for that, and that's already kind of told you what promotion readiness elements. What is it saying about Jordan?
Yep. So here
Ready
it's
now.
telling us here are the ready now strengths. This is what Jordan is already good at.
Okay.
These are the strengths.
Okay. Ready now, ready soon. I love that.
Yeah.
It's brilliant. My God. And you didn't ask it to come up with any of the structure.
Yep. Nope, I didn't.
Brilliant.
So another question that now I'm very curious about, because it's given us so much information about Jordan, and clearly Jordan can't work on all of this. So I'm just curious to know, what is that one single shift in his behavior that would have the biggest impact on how others perceive Jordan? I'm just curious to know, what can he work on as a single thing?
Yeah, great. Here we go. Leading through others, not around them.
Synthesis.
I love
Nice
that.
one.
That's brilliant.
And it's automatically again inferring that if I'm asking this question, GPT is taking the ownership of translating it into an action plan.
I love it. Look at this.
And look at the action plan. Start every initiative with a 3-part ritual: early inclusion, delegation matrix, and evidence pack. So it's telling us how to apply this framework.
I'll tell you what. I mean, literally none of the huge consultancies I worked with on these executive 360 routines, none of this ever came back in terms of, a detailed day by day, step by step, kind of development process. It would identify, the shortcomings, and it even might go as far as saying, if you don't kind of deal with this stuff now, here are some of the bad things that could happen. Or here are some of the things that will hold you back. It was never ever kind of definitive. It never said bad, but it always ever said these will be the barriers for your continued trajectory and career, whatever. This is
Yeah,
amazing. This is you and me doing this, and it's already kind of like spelled out, sort of a day by day, kind of things you have to look for, visible leadership behaviors, things you need to be aware of, perception impact, what peers are saying, what direct reports are saying, what managers are thinking. I mean, what more could you possibly want coming out of this session, um, in terms of knowing what it is you need to know to be successful? It's just completely transparent
that's right.
and action oriented.
Yep, yep. So the last thing that I wanted to show us today is, now let's translate all this investigation that
Yeah.
we have done as administrators of 360 feedback into a 30-60-90 plan for Jordan.
Okay.
Again, we can do it for Alex, we can do for anybody, but because we are following a logical order of starting with Alex and then Jordan, I will demo 30-60-90 for Jordan alone today. But then here's what I want to also highlight, that because organizations are now looking at AI integration and adoption, so we can frame the 30-60-90 after a 360 for a specific outcome that we are looking for. So for example, here I am telling GPT to build a 30-60-90 development plan for Jordan. Oops, 1 second. I don't know why it's doing this to us today. So focus on building a 30-60-90 development plan for Jordan, but focus on getting him ready as an AI adoption leader,
Right.
and include monthly themes, actionable goals, on the job stretch assignments, and learning resources.
Yeah.
So
So
I'm,
this is not like go take a generic leadership course and
yes,
get smart about leadership, right? And that would just be soul destroying to Jordan, who's already a high potential, high performer.
that's right.
He would look at something like that and be like, "Are you serious? Go suck an egg. I've got work I got to go do." Honestly, thanks for that.
Exactly. And that is one thing that we struggle with as L&D leaders in leadership development programming, because it's still one size fits all. Whereas leadership is so unique, so personal, like how different leaders might be at different stages of their journey, leadership journey, against different capabilities. And one leader might be really strong in context A, but not so strong in context B. So doesn't make them a bad leader. They're just not right fit for that situation. And our goal is to tailor their leadership development journey so that we can bridge the gap between what we expect them as a leader to do now in the new priorities for the business.
Well, and you think about the impact this would have on the organization, right? I mean, these big giant consultancy 360 programs that I keep talking about, which are hyper expensive, and because of that, we're only ever run probably once every 2 years, right, for the leadership team. And it's administratively, it's a real pain in the neck to kind of get all this everything lined up, and then you have to have external coaches come in and do all this stuff. Look, this stuff is at your fingertips, right? You can run your own 360-degree program. You then gather all that data and you start running these very simple prompts on it. And this stuff will blow people's minds. I wouldn't just take this and email it to Alex, Jordan's boss, and say, "Hey, Alex, go do stuff, go be a good coach," kind of thing. But I would use this as an opportunity for me as the HR person to meet with Alex and say, "Can we have a session, or can I have a session with Jordan? Take him through all this stuff, and then both of you will have this data going forward for his continued development. You can then, Alex, you can continue coaching Jordan, and just making sure he's keeping true to these things here. And that's I mean, and you could do it as often as you like. I mean, these are pretty heavy duty things, but you can do it twice a year, just to kind of help people course correct. And what is it going to cost you? It's going to cost you a little bit of time, right?
That's right. That's right. So here's what GPT is recommending. It's saying first month, build strategic visibility and team inclusion. Second month, scale data-driven decision making. And third month, lead visible AI adoption and change. So, and for each month, it's giving us the theme, the objective, and actionable goals. Conduct team inclusion audit. Identify 2 or 3 recurring decisions where Jordan can bring the team in earlier. So you see, it's not a typical leadership development program. It's
Not at
not
all.
content heavy. It is application heavy, which is where the true learning happens. It happens in application and not just reading concepts and frameworks theoretically.
I love that. I love that. Yeah, it's not taking people out of their day, right? And then just saying, "Here, we're going to kind of like jam a bunch of concepts into your head, then we're going to send you back into the real world, and good luck trying to figure all that out." This is actually working in the flow of work, and actually giving you things to be thinking about as you go. This is infinitely more effective than
That's right.
anything I've ever seen.
That's right. So on the job stretch assignment, it's telling us lead a framing session for an AI use case, assign KPI ownership, present pilot rationale, to senior stakeholders. So, and then of course some learning resources. Go read this article on HR,
Sure.
HBR, and whatnot. But here's the thing: if L&D leaders get the development plans that are written like this for all leaders in the organization, what's stopping them from putting all of those development plans into, let's say, GPT, and connecting their current learning offerings and saying, where are the gaps? How do we strengthen our product and experience offering as L&D leaders to support at a macro level where the demand is? Imagine we can do better demand forecasting on what new products and services we should offer as learning leaders, because now we have visibility into what the development paths look like for all leaders.
Well, and that's a real sea change, right, for sort of the L&D department, who typically has kind of been working, kind of in the back office, keeping tabs on things, managing special requests coming through, similar to what HR has to deal with, oftentimes, or at least that's what the relationship has evolved into. And every L&D leader I've ever spoken with always ever said, "I want to be proactive. I want to be leading on this stuff. I want to be a product machine. I want to be basically kind of kicking stuff out to people that when they partake in it, they're like, wow, on time, perfect, in the flow of work, really helped. Thank you so much. I needed that." And that's the feedback you want over and over again. And that's what makes you strategically valuable to the business. So this is yeah, that is just amazing. That honestly was better feedback than I think I've ever seen from any of these 360-degree things that we paid, I mean, extortionate funds,
That's right.
to try to get done. And and yeah, that's wild.
Yeah. Now imagine how powerful it is if we give anonymized feedback to the person who had their 360.
Yeah.
Like if I get access to my 360 where I don't need to know who said what. I just need to know what was said about me against certain dimensions, capabilities, criterias that we put together. How powerful it is for me as a user, because now I can curate my own learning experience. I can play with my own 360 to come up with my own personalized learning journey.
Yeah.
So it really truly helps cover the blind spots that I might have as a leader because I didn't know what I didn't know.
It is such a difficult job. And the best part about it is, and most of the best leaders I think I've ever come across would always ever say this: you are never not learning. You are always ever developing as a leader. And every day when you get out of bed, you have to make a decision to say, I have to put aside, my pains, my difficulties, my frustrations. I have to lead others today. And I have to do it by example, and I have to be on my game. Right. And there's going to be 150 things that are going to come my way, and people are going to be watching my every move, right? And seeing how it is I react. Who can ever say, lay claim to the fact that they're perfect in that capacity? Nobody.
Yeah.
There's some who like to, typically in politics usually, but it's an extraordinarily difficult job. And every great leader I've ever worked with has always ever said, man, I welcome, this insight. I welcome this. And if you can give me developmental cues and, kind of little bursts of education, if you will, that is germane to me, to the feedback I've received, not just some generic off the shelf, this is the way leaders do great stuff. Please don't make me read another book,
Yeah.
kind of routine. But this is actually about me. So it's hyper personalized. It's in the flow of work. It's micro sized so I can consume it quickly. And therefore, psychologically, I can adapt it really quickly and start to experiment with this newfound knowledge in terms of how it is I respond to people. Then in the next cycle, I want to see if there's any improvement so I can kind of see, you know what I mean? And I get on sort of a scientifically managed plan that's backed by data. And it really kind of gives me powerful insight into who it is I'm becoming as a leader. That's all anybody can ever ask for. That's what we
Yeah.
always ever aim for. So,
Absolutely.
yeah.
Well, so let's end our episode today at this point. And thanks for listening to Beyond HR. If you found today's episode helpful, please subscribe and share it with a colleague who cares about the future of work. And join us next time as we continue exploring how it is reshaping HR and business strategy. Until then, keep designing for impact.
Take care, everybody.